Ambassador Elena Vasquez stood at the window of the human ship Hope's Dawn, watching the massive space station grow larger in the darkness. Nexus Prime was unlike anything humanity had ever built. The station stretched for hundreds of miles in every direction, its crystalline towers gleaming with soft blue light. Ships from dozens of different worlds moved around it like insects around a flower. Elena touched the small earth pin on her uniform jacket. After 40 years of life, she had been chosen to represent all of humanity in this moment. The weight of 6 billion people rested on her shoulders. She had studied alien languages until her throat was raw. She had memorized the customs of 47 different species. She had practiced her speech 1,000 times. Captain Morrison joined her at the window. "Second thoughts?" he asked quietly. "Every minute," Elena replied. "But we have to try. If we can join the Galaxy Council, think what we could learn. Think what we could become." The captain nodded. He had been with Elena through 3 years of preparation. He had watched her work 18-hour days learning about alien cultures. He had seen her cry when she read about species that had destroyed themselves in wars. He had seen her smile when she learned about others that had found peace among the stars. "The docking bay is opening," Morrison said. "Are you ready?" Elena picked up her briefcase. Inside were gifts from Earth, music from every human culture, art from every continent, photos of children playing in parks, videos of rain falling on wheat fields. She wanted the aliens to see the beauty of humanity, not just its mistakes. The docking took 20 minutes. Elena felt the soft bump as their ship connected to the station. Through the walls, she could hear the hiss of atmosphere equalizing. Soon she would breathe the same air as beings from across the galaxy. The airlock opened with a soft chime. 3 aliens waited on the other side. Elena recognized them from her studies. A tall, thin Verdani with green skin like tree bark, a floating Nethys that looked like a jellyfish made of light, a stocky Corvin covered in brown fur. "Ambassador Vasquez," the Verdani said in perfect English. "I am Council Aide Veltar. Welcome to Nexus Prime." Elena bowed in the Verdani style, hands pressed together. "Thank you for this honor. Humanity is grateful for this opportunity." Veltar led them through corridors filled with wonders. Gardens floated in the air without soil. Fish swam through tubes of water that ran along the ceiling. Aliens of every shape and size walked, flew, and slithered past them. Some stopped to stare at Elena. She was the first human most of them had ever seen. "Your species is quite famous," Veltar explained as they walked. "The galaxy has been watching Earth for some time. Your rapid advancement is remarkable." Elena heard something strange in the alien's voice. Not admiration, something closer to worry. They entered a vast chamber at the heart of the station. The Galaxy Council chamber rose before them like a mountain made of seats. Hundreds of levels stretched up into darkness. Each level held the representatives of different worlds. Elena had studied the layout for months, but seeing it in person took her breath away. At the bottom of the chamber stood a simple podium. That was where she would make her case for humanity's membership in the galactic community. "The hearing will begin in 1 hour," Veltar said. "You may use the preparation chamber to review your materials." Elena spent the hour in meditation. She had learned the technique from a Buddhist monk in Tibet. Center the mind. Focus on the goal. Remember why this mattered. When the hour ended, bells chimed throughout the chamber. Elena walked to the podium as hundreds of alien eyes watched her. The chamber fell silent. "Honored members of the Galaxy Council," Elena began, her voice carrying clearly in the vast space. "I come before you as a representative of humanity. We seek not charity but partnership. We offer not submission but cooperation." She opened her briefcase and activated the holographic projector inside. Images of Earth filled the air above the podium. Mountains and oceans, cities and forests, children laughing in playgrounds. "This is our world," Elena said. "We know it may seem harsh to many of you. Our planet has storms that can destroy cities, earthquakes that split the ground, volcanoes that darken the sky. But these challenges have made us strong. They have taught us to work together." She showed them human achievements. The pyramids of Egypt, the Great Wall of China, the music of Mozart, the paintings of Van Gogh, the mathematics of Einstein, the courage of astronauts who reached for the stars. "We have made mistakes," Elena admitted. "We have fought wars. We have damaged our world. But we have also learned. In the last century, we have ended slavery. We have given rights to all people regardless of gender or race. We have begun to heal our planet. We have reached into space with hands open in friendship. Some aliens in the chamber nodded. Others whispered among themselves. Elena could see different reactions on different faces. Hope from some, fear from others. A voice boomed from the upper levels. The human speaks of peace, but their history is written in blood. Elena looked up to see a crystalline being that glowed with cold blue light. She recognized the species from her studies, Zephyrian, one of the most powerful members of the Council. Yes, Elena said calmly. We have known war, but we have also known the courage to choose peace. When we developed weapons that could destroy our world, we chose not to use them. When we faced global challenges, we chose to work together. Our conflicts have taught us the value of cooperation. The Zephyrian's glow intensified. Your species conquered your world through violence. You destroyed countless other species. You poisoned your air and water. Now you seek to bring this destruction to the galaxy. Helena felt anger rise in her chest, but she pushed it down. Getting angry would prove their point. We have made mistakes, she repeated, but we have learned from them. Every species in this chamber has a past. The question is not what we were, but what we can become together. For 3 hours, Elena answered questions. Some aliens asked about human technology. Others wanted to know about human culture. A few seemed genuinely curious about human emotions and creativity. But the questions from the hegemony faction grew harsher. They asked about human weapons, about human expansion into space, about human population growth. Elena answered honestly, but she could see fear growing in their crystalline faces. Finally, the questions ended. Elena was escorted to a waiting chamber while the council voted. Through a small window, she could see the vast chamber below. Lights blinked as representatives cast their votes. Some sections glowed green for yes. Others turned red for no. Captain Morrison sat beside her. You did everything you could, he said. Elena nodded, but worry gnawed at her stomach. The vote was taking too long. If it had been a clear yes, it would have ended quickly. The longer they argued, the worse the chances became. After 6 hours, Veltar returned. The alien's green face looked troubled. The council has reached a decision, Veltar said quietly. I am sorry, Ambassador. The vote was 623 to 224 against membership. Elena felt the words hit her like a physical blow. After 3 years of preparation, after humanity's greatest diplomatic effort, after everything they had sacrificed to get here. I see, Elena said quietly. May I ask why? Veltar hesitated. The hegemony faction convinced many representatives that humans are too dangerous. They fear your species' potential for violence and rapid expansion. Elena stood up slowly. Then we will return to Earth and continue to grow as a species. Perhaps in time the Council will reconsider. But Veltar's next words chilled her blood. I am afraid that will not be possible, Ambassador. The Council has classified humanity as a Category 12 threat. The hegemony has demanded immediate action to prevent future human aggression. Elena stared at the alien. What kind of action? The door to the chamber opened. 6 armed guards entered, their weapons already raised. I am truly sorry, Veltar whispered. Elena stood perfectly still as the guards surrounded her. Their weapons hummed with energy, ready to fire at the first sign of movement. She had read about these plasma rifles in her diplomatic studies. They could turn a human body to ash in seconds. This is a violation of diplomatic immunity, Captain Morrison said, stepping forward. One of the guards swung his weapon toward the captain, who raised his hands and stepped back. Veltar looked sick. The green alien's bark-like skin had turned pale. The hegemony claims that diplomatic immunity does not apply to Category 12 threats. They say the danger to galactic peace is too great. Elena felt a strange calm settle over her. She had always wondered how she would face death. Now she knew. With dignity. With purpose. With a message for her people. May I record a final statement? She asked quietly. The lead guard, a reptilian creature with yellow scales, hissed something in his own language. Veltar translated. He says you have 5 minutes. Elena activated her personal communicator. The small device would transmit her words back to the Hope's Dawn, which would relay them to Earth. She looked directly into the camera. My fellow humans, she began, her voice steady despite the weapons pointed at her. I am Ambassador Elena Vasquez, speaking from Nexus Prime. The Galaxy Council has voted to deny humanity membership. More than that, they have decided that our very existence is a threat to galactic peace. She paused, choosing her words carefully. These might be the last words Earth ever heard from beyond their solar system. They fear us because we are different. We come from a world that challenges us every day. We have known war, but we have also known the courage to choose peace. We have made mistakes, but we have learned from them. We reached out to the galaxy with open hands and open hearts. The reptilian guard made an impatient gesture. Elena nodded. They are going to execute me for the crime of being human, for representing a species they do not understand. I want you to know that I am not afraid. I am proud to be human. I am proud to represent Earth. Tell my sister Sarah that I love her. Tell President Chen that we tried. Elena looked directly into the camera one final time. Tell them we tried to be better than they think we are. She turned off the communicator and handed it to Veltar. Please ensure this reaches the human ship. The green alien nodded, tears running down his bark-like cheeks. Elena realized that not all the aliens agreed with what was happening, but they were too afraid of the hegemony to speak out. The guards marched Elena through the corridors of Nexus Prime. Other aliens stopped to watch the procession. Some looked confused. Others seemed frightened. A few appeared angry, but Elena could not tell if they were angry at her or at the guards. They entered a large chamber that Elena recognized from her studies. The Justice Chamber, where the Galaxy Council held public trials and executions. The room was designed like an ancient Earth amphitheater, with rows of seats rising up from a central stage. The seats were filling rapidly. Word of the humans' execution was spreading through the station. Elena was led to the center of the stage where a metal platform waited. Above the platform hung a massive energy projector. She knew what it was from her diplomatic briefings. A molecular disintegrator. It would unmake her body atom by atom. High above the stage, in a box reserved for council leadership, Elena could see the crystalline form of Zalthis, the hegemony leader. The alien's blue glow pulsed with satisfaction. A voice echoed through the chamber, speaking in the common galactic language. Elena's translator converted the words to English in her earpiece. Citizens of the galaxy, the voice announced. You are witness to the execution of the human Elena Vasquez, representative of the species classified as Category 12 threat. Let this serve as a warning to all who would challenge the peace and stability of our galactic community. Elena was forced to stand on the metal platform. Energy fields activated around her, holding her in place. She could feel the power building in the disintegrator above her head. In the audience, she could see Veltar sitting with other council aides. The green alien was crying openly. Near him sat a delegation of Corvin, their furry faces angry and ashamed. Elena realized that many aliens disagreed with what was happening, but fear of the hegemony kept them silent. The disintegrator powered up with a low hum that grew louder and higher in pitch. Elena closed her eyes and thought of Earth. She thought of her sister Sarah, probably sitting in a military briefing room somewhere, planning humanity's defense against threats that might come from space. She thought of children playing in parks. She thought of rain on wheat fields. Any final words? The voice asked. Elena opened her eyes and looked up at Zalthis. The hegemony leader was leaning forward in anticipation. Yes, Elena said, her voice carrying clearly through the chamber. To the species watching this, remember that fear makes cowards of us all. You are murdering an ambassador who came in peace. History will judge you for this moment. She looked around the chamber, meeting as many alien eyes as she could. And to my people, who will surely learn of this, do not let them define you by their fear. Be better than they believe you can be, but never forget that sometimes being better means being stronger. Zalthis made a sharp gesture. The disintegrator fired. Elena felt a moment of intense heat, then nothing at all. The chamber fell silent. Even the hegemony members seemed stunned by what they had just done. They had executed a diplomatic envoy in cold blood. They had murdered an ambassador who had come in peace. Veltar stood up slowly. Other aliens began to follow. Soon half the chamber was standing in silent protest. The hegemony guards looked nervously at their superiors, unsure how to respond to this unprecedented display of defiance. Captain Morrison watched the execution from his detention cell aboard the Hope's Dawn. The aliens had allowed him to see the broadcast as a courtesy. He stared at the screen long after. Elena's image disappeared. His hands clenched into fists. The ship's communications officer ran into the room. "Captain!" "We're receiving Elena's final message. The relay boys are already transmitting it toward Earth." Morrison nodded slowly. Elena's words would reach Earth in 72 hours. He could imagine the reaction. President Chen had been a soldier before she became a politician. She understood that sometimes diplomacy failed. That was why Earth had backup plans. "Send a priority message to Earth Command," Morrison ordered. "Authentication code Alpha 77. Message reads, Envoy down. Repeat, Envoy down. Recommend Protocol Omega activation." The communications officer's face went pale. Every human in the space program knew what Protocol Omega meant. It was the plan they all hoped would never be needed. Back on Nexus Prime, Zalthus addressed the chamber. "Let this be a lesson to all species. The galaxy will not tolerate threats to our peace. The humans have been warned. If they attempt to expand beyond their system, they will face the full might of the Galaxy Council." But in the detention centers of the station, human crew members were already planning. They had been captured, but they were still alive. And they had seen what the aliens had done to their ambassador. The humans were engineers, pilots, and soldiers. They began to study the station's layout. They memorized guard rotations. They identified weaknesses in the alien technology. They were not planning to escape. They were planning to send a message. 3 days later, when the relief ships arrived to take the humans back to Earth, the crew of the Hope's Dawn was nowhere to be found. Instead, the aliens found a message burned into the hull of their ship in letters 10 feet tall. "You wanted to see monsters. You will." The message was signed with a simple Earth symbol, a clenched human fist. By then, Elena's final transmission was already racing toward Earth at the speed of light, carrying news that would change everything. The galaxy had made its choice. Now humanity would make theirs. In the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected something unprecedented. Energy signatures were building throughout the Sol system. Massive power sources were coming online. Construction yards that had been hidden in asteroid fields were suddenly visible to sensors. Humanity was no longer hiding. The aliens had wanted to see what humans were capable of when threatened. They were about to find out. President Chen stood in the Situation Room beneath the White House, staring at the holographic display showing Elena's final moments. The image froze on the ambassador's face just before the disintegrator fired. Around the table sat the leaders of every major nation on Earth. They had watched the execution in complete silence. 72 hours, Chen said quietly. "Elena has been dead for 72 hours and we're just now seeing it." Defense Secretary Martinez cleared his throat. "The delay works in our favor, Madam President. While we were watching Elena die, our people were already working." Chen nodded. The moment Elena's emergency signal had reached Earth, Protocol Omega had activated automatically. The plan they had all hoped never to use was now in motion. "Give me the status report," Chen ordered. General Harrison, chairman of the Joint Chiefs, activated the tactical display. Points of light appeared throughout the solar system. Each one represented a hidden military installation that had been building in secret for 15 years. "Luna Base 7 is fully operational," Harrison began. 200 warships completed and crewed. The asteroid belt facilities have finished construction on the Dreadnought fleet. 47 capital ships, each one larger than anything the aliens have ever built. Chen studied the display. She had authorized these secret programs years ago, when humanity first detected alien signals. While they built the diplomatic ship Hope's Dawn, they had also built weapons. While Elena learned alien languages, human engineers had reverse-engineered alien technology. While humanity reached out in friendship, they had also prepared for war. "The Mars shipyards?" Chen asked. "Online as of 6 hours ago," Harrison replied. "They're producing fighter craft at a rate of 500 per day. We estimate 12,000 combat-ready fighters within the week." European Prime Minister Kovac leaned forward. "The crews?" "That's the remarkable part," Harrison said. "We have more volunteers than ships." Elena's execution was broadcast globally. Every military base on Earth has lines of people demanding to enlist. "We're turning away qualified pilots because we don't have enough fighters for them." Chen felt a grim satisfaction. The aliens had made a terrible mistake. They had given humanity a martyr. They had shown the galaxy exactly what they thought of human life. Now they would learn what humans thought of alien judgment. Russian Premier Volkov spoke up. "What about the weapon systems? Are we ready to match their technology?" Admiral Rodriguez answered. Our weapons are different from theirs. They build for exploration and light defense. We build for war. Their plasma weapons are sophisticated, but our kinetic systems hit harder. Their shields are designed to stop energy weapons, not physical projectiles moving at 30% of light speed. Chen walked to the window and looked out at the city above. Somewhere out there, Elena's sister Sarah was preparing for the mission that would define humanity's future, the mission that would either establish humans as a galactic power or see Earth destroyed in retaliation. I want to be clear about what we're doing, Chen said, turning back to the room. This is not revenge. This is justice. They murdered our ambassador under diplomatic protection. They declared war on humanity. By classifying us as a threat for simply existing, we are responding to an act of war. She activated her personal communicator and opened a channel to every military base on Earth. This is President Chen, she began. 72 hours ago, Ambassador Elena Vasquez was murdered by the Galaxy Council for the crime of representing humanity. She went to them in peace. She offered them friendship. They answered with execution. Across the globe, millions of people stopped what they were doing to listen. In military bases, recruitment centers, and command rooms, humans prepared to hear their leader's decision. Today, we activate Protocol Omega. Today, humanity goes to war, not for conquest, but for justice. Not for territory, but for the right to exist. The aliens wanted to see monsters. We will show them what monsters look like when they defend their families. She paused, thinking of Elena's final words. Elena told us to be better than they think we are. We will be. We will be better soldiers, better strategists, better warriors. We will show them that underestimating humanity was the last mistake they will ever make. The transmission ended. Within minutes, reports began flooding in from around the globe. Military bases were activating at full capacity. Hidden shipyards were revealed as asteroid camouflage fell away. Weapon systems that had been disguised as mining equipment powered up for the first time. In the asteroid belt, Admiral Sarah Knox stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Elena's Vengeance. She had requested the naming personally. Elena had been more than her ambassador. She had been her sister. Sarah watched through the viewports as the largest human fleet ever assembled took formation around her flagship. Dreadnoughts the size of small cities. Cruisers bristling with weapons that could crack a moon. Thousands of fighters swarming like angry wasps. Admiral, her communications officer called out. We're receiving deployment orders from Earth Command. Sarah read the orders on her personal display. The target was clear. Nexus Prime. The mission was simple. Destroy the Galaxy Council's military forces and capture their leadership for trial. Signal the fleet, Sarah ordered. All ships prepare for faster-than-light jump. Destination, the Galactic Core. Inform all captains that we are now at war with the Galaxy Council. She opened a ship-wide communication channel. This is Admiral Knox, she began. Many of you knew Ambassador Elena Vasquez personally. All of you know what she represented. She was the best of humanity. She carried our hopes and dreams to the stars. The aliens killed her because they were afraid of what humanity could become. Sarah looked out at the vast fleet surrounding her ship. Today, we show them their fears were justified. But not because we are monsters. Because we are human. Because we protect our own. Because when someone murders our ambassadors, we make them pay. The jump calculations were complete. Across the fleet, faster-than-light drives powered up. Space began to twist and bend around the human vessels. Elena's final words were a promise. Sarah continued. She said we would try to be better than they think we are. Today we keep that promise. We will be better soldiers than they have ever faced. Better tacticians than they can imagine. Better warriors than their nightmares. The first ships began to disappear into hyperspace, racing toward the galactic core at speeds the aliens thought impossible for such large vessels. They wanted to judge humanity, Sarah said as her own ship prepared to jump. Today, humanity judges them. The Elena's Vengeance vanished in a flash of twisted light, carrying death toward the heart of galactic civilization. Behind them, Earth's orbital defense platforms powered up for the first time. Massive railguns that could punch holes through small moons. Shield generators that could protect entire continents. Fighter bays hidden in the moon that could launch 10,000 craft in minutes. The aliens had thought they were dealing with a primitive species from a single world. They were about to discover that humanity had been preparing for this war since the day they first looked up at the stars. In communication centers around the globe, messages began transmitting toward the galaxy. Not threats or demands, but simple statements of fact. Videos of Elena's execution. Recordings of her peaceful mission. Documentation of every violation of diplomatic law. And alongside those messages, tactical data about the human fleet racing toward Nexus Prime. Ship specifications. Weapon capabilities. Projected arrival times. The aliens had 96 hours to prepare for humanity's arrival. It would not be enough. Across the galaxy, alien monitoring stations detected the human fleet and immediately transmitted warnings to their governments. The speed of the human ships was impossible. Their weapon signatures were unlike anything in galactic databases. Their formation suggested tactical knowledge that no isolated species should possess. The Galaxy Council called an emergency session. Representatives who had voted for Elena's execution now faced the consequences of their decision. The humans were not sending diplomats this time. They were sending death. And leading them was Elena's sister, carrying justice across the void between stars. Admiral Sarah Knox stood on the bridge of the Elena's Vengeance as her fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Kepler system. Through the viewports, she could see the Galaxy Council's first line of defense. 300 alien warships arranged in perfect formation around the system's largest space station. Impressive, said Commander Torres, her tactical officer. They managed to assemble a response fleet in less than 96 hours. Sarah studied the alien formation. The ships were beautiful, with flowing lines and elegant curves. They looked more like works of art than weapons of war. That was their first mistake. Signal from the alien fleet, the communications officer reported. They're demanding our immediate surrender. Sarah almost smiled. Put them on screen. The main display showed a Zephyrian commander, his crystalline form glowing with authority. Human vessels, you are in violation of galactic law. Surrender immediately and you will be granted a trial before execution. Sarah stepped forward. I am Admiral Sarah Knox of the human fleet. You are harboring war criminals who murdered our ambassador. Surrender the members of the Galaxy Council responsible for Elena Vasquez's execution, and we will allow your crews to evacuate. The alien commander's glow intensified. You dare make demands? Your entire species has been classified as a Category 12 threat. We will destroy you as we should have destroyed your homeworld. Sarah nodded to her communications officer who cut the transmission. All ships, Sarah broadcast to her fleet. You heard their response. They show no remorse for murdering our ambassador. They threaten our homeworld. Humanity has tried diplomacy. Now we try war. The alien fleet moved first exactly as Sarah had predicted. Their ships advanced in a perfect wall formation, the same tactic they had used to intimidate dozens of species into submission. It was designed for maximum visual impact, showing overwhelming force to enemies who would rather surrender than fight. The aliens had never faced an enemy that wanted to fight. All fighters, launch, Sarah ordered. Cruiser squadrons, break formation. Dreadnoughts target their command ships. The human response looked like chaos to the aliens. Ships scattered in all directions. Fighters swarmed like insects. The careful formation dissolved into what appeared to be random movement. The alien commander felt confident as he watched the humans panic. His perfect formation would crush these barbarians in minutes. The galaxy would see that the Council's military power was absolute than the human. Weapons opened fire, kinetic. Rounds traveling at 30% of light speed punched through alien shields like they were made of paper. The aliens had designed their defenses to stop energy weapons. They had never imagined projectiles moving at such incredible speeds. The first alien ship to die was their flagship. A single railgun round from the Elena's Vengeance went through its shields, through its armor, and through 3 decks before exploding inside the command center. The beautiful crystalline vessel cracked like an egg and went dark. What was that? The surviving alien commanders screamed over their communication channels. What kind of weapon was that? They were about to find out. Human fighters dove through the alien formation like sharks through a school of fish. Their weapons were different too. Instead of elegant plasma beams, they fired streams of micro-projectiles that shredded alien hulls. Instead of graceful maneuvers, they used brutal efficiency. The alien pilots had trained for centuries in aerial dancing, turning combat into an art form. The human pilots had trained for decades in killing, turning combat into a science. Within 20 minutes, half the alien fleet was destroyed or disabled. The survivors tried to retreat, but human ships were faster. The aliens had built for comfort and efficiency. Humans had built for speed and violence. Sarah watched the battle from her command chair, feeling no satisfaction in the destruction. This was not glory. This was justice. Each alien ship that died was payment for Elena's murder. "Admiral," her sensor officer called out, "the space station is launching escape pods." "Let them go," Sarah ordered. "We're not here to murder civilians. We're here to deliver justice to war criminals." The Battle of Kepler Station ended after 2 hours. Of the 300 alien ships, only 12 escaped to carry word of humanity's power back to the galactic core. The space station surrendered after Sarah's Marines breached their command center and captured their records. But Sarah was not done. She had learned something important from the alien databases. The Galaxy Council had a secret fleet hidden in the Vega system. 1,000 ships meant to be their final defense if any species ever threatened their power. The aliens expected the humans to celebrate their victory and perhaps negotiate from a position of strength. They expected the barbarians to act like every other species they had ever encountered. They had forgotten that humans were different. Instead of stopping to consolidate their victory, Sarah's fleet jumped immediately to Vega. Instead of giving the aliens time to prepare, the humans struck while their enemies were still reeling from the first defeat. The secret fleet was impressive. 1,000 ships of the newest design, crewed by the Council's best warriors. They had been preparing for this battle for 48 hours, arranging themselves in an impenetrable defensive formation around the system's star. Sarah studied their deployment and smiled grimly. The aliens were still thinking like explorers, not warriors. They had arranged their ships to protect each other, creating overlapping fields of fire that would devastate any attacking force that fought like they did. "All ships," Sarah broadcast. "Execute Plan Echo, target the star." Her fleet ignored the alien ships entirely. Instead, they fired on the system star with everything they had. Kinetic rounds designed to penetrate planetary cores slammed into the stellar surface. Fusion bombs designed to crack moons detonated in the star's atmosphere. The aliens watched in horror as their own star began to destabilize. Solar flares erupted across its surface. The gravitational field fluctuated wildly. Space itself began to twist and bend. "Madness," the alien commander screamed. "You'll destroy the entire system." Sarah's response was broadcast on all frequencies. "Then surrender." The alien fleet broke formation, trying to escape the system before their own star killed them. But as they scattered, human fighters fell on them like wolves on sheep. The perfect defensive formation became a death trap as ships collided in their panic to escape. Sarah did not enjoy the slaughter, but she felt no pity for the aliens dying around her. They had chosen this war when they murdered Elena. Every death was on their hands, not hers. The Battle of Vega lasted only 6 hours. When it ended, the Galaxy Council's secret fleet was space debris and the star had stabilized. The humans had demonstrated something the aliens had never imagined. They were willing to risk everything to win. As her fleet prepared for the final jump to Nexus Prime, Sarah recorded a message that would be broadcast across the galaxy. "Citizens of the galactic community," she began, "I am Admiral Sarah Knox of the human fleet. 72 hours ago, you watched my sister Elena Vasquez die. You watched your leaders murder an ambassador who came in peace." The recording showed Elena's final moments, then switched to footage of the human victories at Kepler and Vega. "Elena tried to show you the best of humanity. You rejected her. Now you see what happens when humanity shows you its worst. Every ship that dies, every life that ends is the price of your leader's arrogance." Sarah looked directly into the camera. "I am coming for the ones who killed my sister. I am coming for the ones who voted for her death. You can surrender them, or you can watch your civilization burn. Choose wisely." The recording ended with Elena's final words. "Tell them we tried to be better than they think we are." Across the galaxy, alien governments watched the human fleet advance toward their capital with growing terror. These were not the primitive barbarians they had imagined. These were sophisticated killers who had turned warfare into an art form. The Galaxy Council called for reinforcements from every member species. They prepared the ultimate weapons they had never needed to use. They made desperate plans for a final stand at Nexus Prime, but in the depths of space, Sarah's fleet continued its inexorable advance toward the heart of galactic civilization. They carried with them the fury of humanity and the memory of a murdered ambassador. The reckoning was coming. Admiral Sarah Knox stood before the massive viewport of the Elena's vengeance, watching Nexus Prime grow larger in the darkness. The space station that had once seemed like a marvel of galactic civilization now looked like what it truly was, a fortress built on fear and maintained by violence. Around the station, the largest fleet in galactic history waited in defensive formation, 5,000 ships from 800 different worlds. Every species that had ever bowed to the Galaxy Council's authority had sent their vessels to defend the seat of galactic power. Impressive, Commander Torres said quietly. They managed to assemble everything they have, Sarah nodded. Intelligence reports indicated that entire star systems had been left defenseless to gather this fleet. The Galaxy Council had bet everything on this final battle. Signal from the alien fleet, the communications officer reported. It's different this time. The main display activated, showing not a military commander but Veltar, the green-skinned aide who had escorted Elena to her death. The alien looked exhausted and afraid. Admiral Knox, Veltar began. I am Council Aide Veltar. I was present when your sister died. I want you to know that many of us opposed her execution. Many of us tried to prevent this war. Sarah studied the alien's face. She could see genuine remorse there, real grief for what had been done. Then surrender the ones responsible, Sarah replied simply. Veltar's bark-like skin grew pale. The hegemony leaders refused to surrender. They have activated the station's ultimate defense systems. They would rather see the galaxy burn than admit they were wrong. Sarah felt a cold anger settle in her chest. Even now, facing total defeat, the aliens who had murdered her sister refused to accept justice. Then they have made their choice, Sarah said. You have 30 minutes to evacuate non-combatants from the station. After that, we attack. The transmission ended. Sarah turned to her tactical officer. Deploy the fleet. I want every escape route covered. Anyone who wants to surrender can leave. Anyone who wants to fight can die. For 28 minutes, Sarah watched a stream of ships leaving Nexus Prime. Civilian transports, diplomatic vessels, cargo haulers. Thousands of aliens who had played no part in Elena's murder, but had been trapped by their leaders' decisions. Sarah let them all go. This was not about revenge against innocent people. This was about justice for the guilty. When the 30 minutes ended, only the military fleet remained around Nexus Prime. 5,000 ships crewed by beings who had chosen to follow their leaders into battle rather than face the consequences of murder. All ships, Sarah broadcast to her fleet. Execute final protocol. Target the council chamber. The human fleet moved with precision that awed even their enemies. While the alien ships maintained their static defensive formation, human vessels flowed like water around their defenses. Fighters dove through gaps in the alien lines. Cruisers struck from unexpected angles. Dreadnoughts punched holes through the strongest defensive positions, but the aliens had learned from their previous defeats. Their weapons targeted human fighters with desperate accuracy. Their shields held longer against kinetic rounds. Their commanders had studied human tactics and prepared countermeasures. For the first time since the war began, humans died in significant numbers. Sarah watched her tactical display as red lights winked out, each one representing a human ship and crew. These were not anonymous casualties. These were people she had trained with, fought beside, shared meals and stories with. Each death was personal, but the human advance continued. For every ship they lost, they destroyed 3 alien vessels. For every fighter that died, they cleared the path for 10 more. The mathematics of war were brutal but simple. Humanity had turned killing into a science. The breakthrough came after 4 hours of fighting. Human Marines in powered armor breached Nexus Prime's outer hull and began fighting their way toward the council chamber. These were not the same Marines who had accompanied Elena on her diplomatic mission. These were soldiers who had watched their ambassador die and volunteered to extract payment in blood. Sarah led the assault personally. She had earned the right to face her sister's killers in person. The corridors of Nexus Prime had been designed for beauty and wonder. Now they ran red with alien blood as human soldiers advanced through desperate defensive positions. The aliens fought bravely, but they fought like explorers and scientists. The humans fought like what they were, killers who had evolved on a world that tried to murder them every day. The final battle took place in the council chamber itself. Zalthus, the hegemony leader who had ordered Elena's execution, waited with his personal guard in the same room where the human ambassador had died. Sarah entered the chamber through a hole her marines had blown in the wall. Her armor was scarred from battle, her weapons hot from constant use. Behind her came a dozen human soldiers, their faces grim behind their helmets. "Admiral Knox," Zalthus said, his crystalline form glowing with defiant light. "You have destroyed our fleets, murdered our people, and brought chaos to galactic civilization. Are you satisfied?" Sarah pulled off her helmet and stared at the alien who had killed her sister. "Not yet." The chamber fell silent except for the distant sounds of battle. Zalthus floated in the center of the room, surrounded by his guards. Sarah stood at the chamber's edge, her soldiers at her sides. "You killed our ambassador," Sarah said quietly. "You murdered a woman who came in peace. You violated every law of diplomacy and declared war on humanity for the crime of existing." Zalthus's glow intensified. "Your species was a threat to galactic stability. We acted to preserve peace." Sarah laughed, but there was no humor in the sound. "Peace? You call the murder of diplomats peace? You call the threat to destroy entire worlds peace?" She gestured around the ruined chamber. "This is what your peace looks like. This is what happens when you mistake fear for wisdom." The alien guards raised their weapons, but Sarah's soldiers were faster. Plasma beams met kinetic rounds in the center of the chamber. When the shooting stopped, only humans were left standing. Zalthus lay broken on the floor, his crystalline body cracked and dark. Sarah knelt beside him. "You wanted to see monsters," she said softly. "You created them. The war was over, but the reckoning was just beginning." In the weeks that followed, human fleets occupied every major world in council space. The Galaxy Council was dissolved and replaced with a new government, based on the principles Elena had tried to present. Cooperation instead of domination. Justice instead of fear. Sarah established the Elena Vasquez Accords, laws that protected diplomatic immunity and restricted the power of galactic governments. She created courts where species could seek justice without violence. She built the institutions her sister had dreamed of, but the cost had been enormous. The war had killed millions of aliens and thousands of humans. Entire star systems had been devastated. The galaxy's faith in peaceful cooperation had been shattered. Sarah stood in her office aboard Nexus Prime, now renamed Vasquez Station in honor of her sister. Through the window, she could see human and alien ships working together to repair the damage of war. The cooperation Elena had sought was finally happening, but only because humanity had proved it could destroy anyone who opposed it. A soft chime announced a visitor. Feltar entered, his green skin showing the scars of battle. "Admiral," the alien said quietly, "the new council is ready to vote on the memorial." Sarah nodded. They were building a monument to Elena in the center of the station. A reminder of the price of prejudice and the cost of wisdom learned too late. "Have you thought about what Elena would say?" Feltar asked. "About what we've become?" Sarah stared out at the galaxy her sister had tried to join peacefully, and that she had conquered through war. She would say we tried to be better than they thought we were, Sarah replied. She would ask if we succeeded. Feltar was quiet for a long moment. "Did we?" Sarah touched the small earth pin on her uniform, the same kind Elena had worn to her death. "We're safer. We're stronger. We're respected. But are we better?" She turned from the window. "That's a question for history to answer." Outside, in the vastness of space, human ships patrolled the trade routes that Elena had hoped to travel as an ambassador. They carried her dream of galactic cooperation, but they carried it at gunpoint. The galaxy had learned to fear humanity. Now it would have to learn to live with them. In distant star systems, other species watched the human expansion with growing concern. The galaxy was vast and humanity's reach was still small, but they had seen what happened to those who opposed Earth's children. They had seen what monsters looked like when they claimed to seek justice. And in the depths of space, automated monitoring stations detected new energy signatures at the edge of known space. Other galaxies had taken notice of humanity's rise. They too were making preparations. The war for galactic supremacy was over. Humanity had won. The war for universal dominance was about to begin, but that would be Elena's legacy for future generations to carry. For now, her sister had kept the promise made over a murdered ambassador's grave. They had tried to be better than their enemies believed possible. Whether they had succeeded remained to be seen.